One thing I said after the last trailer was that we'd already seen everything there was to see, so there was no real need for another one. I was so wrong, because I somehow forgot this was One Piece with an infinite amount of crazy. This world is just that big and ridiculous, and we have gotten a full, and I'm assuming final trailer before the second season releases, March 10th, so as of the day this trailer came out, we are exactly a month away from it, or technically less than a month because this is February, so less days means less waiting time, and you thought the last trailer showed a lot. This trailer showed more, so much more. I was optimistic when the first teaser came out, I was convinced when the second teaser came out, and now with this full trailer I am certain that this season is going to be amazing, and there will be spoilers ahead, not just for these arcs but for the whole manga. So for this trailer I am kind of gonna go shot for shot, because jumping around with so much in it is just gonna get really confusing really quickly, but also there are a few shots that come from the same scenes, so I'm gonna bunch them all together. For example, when the first shot of the inside of Laboon is shown, I'll talk about all of the shots from the inside of Laboon that were shown throughout the trailer, but I may also skip over stuff that we've either already seen or it's just not that important of a shot, because I said it in the previous teaser video as well, you've watched the trailer yourself, and if you're watching my breakdown here then you've most likely watched other breakdowns elsewhere, so I will do my best to keep this as a discussion, not a description. The trailer opens with the crew sailing on the wide water, Luffy sitting on the figurehead of the Merry, so this looks to me it's either before Reverse Mountain or after Reverse Mountain, because the waters are very calm, a wide open ocean, and it looks very bright, kind of matching this shot we had of Reverse Mountain in the first teaser. And as for Luffy sitting on the Merry figurehead, it breaks in the original after it crashes into Laboon, and that causes Luffy to punch him, that's why he swallows up the ship, and that is how the arc unfolds. But since we see Vivi or Miss Wednesday sitting on it in previous teasers, it looks like it's not going to be broken, which is really great for Usopp, because the less damage the Merry takes, the less mental damage he takes. And the next shot is of the Drum Rocky Mountains. We are finally getting looks at Drum Island. This mountain specifically is the one where Kureha's castle sits atop of, and we know that because we see Luffy carrying Nami up the mountain, up 5,000 meters with his hands, feet, and pure grit. I was wondering if they were gonna include this. I was confident because it already looked very faithful the rest of the trailers, you know, but the lack of any Drum Island in the teasers did make me a bit skeptical. But it's here, it looks great, he's struggling, he looks to be in a lot of pain, the environment and snow look very harsh, well obviously because he's climbing a mountain. But one important detail is that there's no Sanji that I can see. I thought he could maybe be under that reddish brown coat, but that looks to be more of extra cover for Nami, and I feel like if that was him he would look bigger. So that's one change I think is being made. He was originally carrying Sanji as well after he was injured from an avalanche caused by the Lapins, those giant rabbits, as he was protecting Luffy and Nami, but if he's not being carried up then I assume those rabbits are being cut. And as much as I like the scene of the rabbits holding off Wapol and his men to repay Luffy for saving one of their own, this is a corner I'm okay with being cut. Giant humanoid rabbits are cool, but there's a lot of unavoidable CGI being used this season, and this is avoidable. That being said, there is stuff shown in this trailer I fully expected to be cut but wasn't, which I'm really happy about, so maybe there's still hope for these Lapin rabbits yet. But back to Sanji, he still makes it up to the castle because he's there with Luffy when they see Chopper, so he manages to get up there anyway, but I can't think of any other way apart from Luffy carrying him, which would mean he does get injured, and that could mean the giant rabbits are in fact in the show, but again I can't see him in the climbing shot, so I'm going back and forth here. Luffy clearly isn't dragging him by his teeth, which he does in the original. Maybe Sanji's climbing up on his own below them, he's hurt from something but not too hurt, so no rabbits after all. That may be my best guess at the moment. And next is the first look of Dr. Hiriluk in a trailer, crazy hair and all, with him sitting with Chopper as they look out to the full moon. This flashback, if done right, has the potential to crush my soul, because I've noticed about myself that since watching Kuma's backstory in the anime, I've become a lot more easily moved by media, even rewatching old arcs or old shows in general that I was able to hold myself together through. So I have high hopes for Hiriluk and Chopper's story. So on that topic, the opening narration over these first few scenes are of Hiriluk telling Chopper about pirates, which is really well done because he gives his description as we see Luffy climbing up the mountain with Nami on his back. So I think this talk comes from the scene where Chopper asks what the skull and crossbones symbol means, where he told him it's a symbol that represents strength and freedom against all odds, which is what led to Chopper searching for the poisonous Amidake mushroom, because the skull and crossbones symbol was next to it it. In that instance, the skull and crossbones meant deadly. That whole plot point over the symbol, from Chopper bringing the mushroom all the way to him crying and trying to explain to Kureha what he thought the symbol meant and why he gave it to Hiruluk, was my favorite part of the entire backstory. Chopper's naivety, Hiruluk's appreciation, Kureha's pessimism, bordering on nihilism was my favorite part, so I am really looking forward to that. And we have a picture of him here as well. With each design I go through this mental process of that looks like the character exactly, but I'll still need to warm up to it a bit because this is still a new medium, and I've definitely warmed up to Hiruluk here. The hair does not look goofy anymore, it just looks like Hiruluk. Moving on to some new shots now of Reverse Mountain. This will be the first instance of me bunching shots together. First we see them approaching the upward stream. They are a lot closer than the shot I mentioned before when they are clearly far away because of how thin the stream was and how bright it was, compared to now where the mood is a bit more serious. Like, this is it. It's darker not only because of the clouds, but they're so close to the red line that its shadow has just begun to engulf them. Then we see them reaching the summit. At the top, no shadows, bright sun, full of color, which is a common theme in this trailer, which is great, not hiding anything in the darkness. And I think you can just about make out the other streams that are coming together from each of the other oceans, the other blues, and that's a really cool shot. But even better is the shot of the ship coming over the peak as we look out over into the Grand Line for the first time, and the angle of this shot's like a roller coaster about to drop. I hate roller coasters, my heart just cannot handle the adrenaline. Every time I'm forced to get on one, I feel like I'm gonna die, but thankfully Luffy is not me, because this is child's play for him. As for the rest of the crew, it's a bit of a mix. Usopp screaming out of fear, Sanji screaming out of joy, and Zoro, I can see a small smile there, even he's having fun. I do hope to see more of that whimsy from Zoro's character, because even though I did enjoy Makenyu's performance and Zoro in general in the first season, he doesn't always have to be stoic. It's okay for Zoro to laugh a bit. And finally we see a shot of the ship coming out on the other side, only to be greeted by the mouth of a giant island whale. Laboon is waiting for them at the bottom, so it looks like he's gonna swallow them straight away as soon as they come down the mountain, which is consistent with the Merry's figurehead not breaking, as well as many other wrecked ships lining his mouth. And going back a bit to a shot I briefly skipped over, we move over to Whiskey Peak. Inside the bar after the crew arrive to their hero's welcome, Luffy leading the celebrations with Zoro having a suspicious look on his face, setting the stage for him to fake being drunk so he can fight the bounty hunters. It's the first clear shot we've been given of the inside of this bar, and it looks unreal, looks like a real bar. The live action has issues, obviously it isn't perfect, but the practical set design has not let me down once. Then comes a shot of the Twin Capes where there are two lighthouses instead of Crocus's one. I guess they're both his. Twin lighthouses for Twin Capes, one on either side of the stream, but in the background we can see what can only be a young Laboon as he watches the ship of the Rumbar pirates sail away into the Grand Line. The ship which we have seen images of on the set in South Africa, I think. I can't imagine they made a whole new boat just for this small scene. It's more likely they modified an old ship set like Alvida's ship, changing the figurehead, the sails, the color scheme. But I am so sure this means we are gonna see Brook this season. At the very least, if we don't see his face, we will hear his voice or see him from the back. But mark my words, Brook will be there no matter what, and so will Yorkie. After that, we see some more of Little Garden, and this is what made me the most excited out of everything in the entire trailer, because the dinosaurs have not been cut from the second season. Like the rabbits, I assumed they would be chalked up as surplus to requirements, and when weighing their necessity against the CGI cost, they would be cut, but I am so happy they weren't, because I'm a big dinosaur guy. First, we see a herd of Brachiosaurus, which, by the way, Brachiosaurus are my favorite dinosaur, all green in all their glory, and there's this thing with the way they look, where the effects look great, but they have this cartoony feel about them, which makes them feel more One Piece, if you know what I mean. The CG models are clearly very detailed, but they didn't go for a photorealistic adaptation. They pulled these dinosaurs straight from the page, and it's even more evident from this image where if you look at the one on the left, it has that sort of rounded appearance you see from cartoon animals, and I think that's such a fun way to bring them to life. They even have that cartoony overbite. The eyes as well look to have big pupils, and look at the scale. A tiny Luffy sitting on one of their heads. If anybody's seen The Land Before Time and its many sequels, they remind me of the Brachiosaurs from there, or the Long Necks as they're called in that universe. The Land Before Time, which is also getting its own fan remake as well, which also makes me really happy. Great time to be a dinosaur guy. Anyway, even if they were adapted accurately based on the real creature, then that would have also blew my mind, so I would have been happy either way. Also, Luffy and Vivi are here exploring just like in the original, but again, then there's no Karu, who should also be here with them, which is the final nail in the coffin for me that he isn't in the second season, which is surprising given we have the unlockies, these dinosaurs, and so much more, so I will stick to saying he's gonna be in season 3. But back to the topic of dinosaurs, I think I'll mention the other one here as well, because we see the T-Rex, which Sanji takes down in his hunting competition with Zoro, the king of the dinosaurs, taken down by Mr. Prince. And even the T-Rex has its own big eyes, you can see them when the shot is slowed down. But this should also mean that the Triceratops that Zoro takes down is also going to be here, even if it's not shown. But another change or addition is of Luffy eating in a bakery on Whiskey Peak with Iguram giving him a warning. This looks to be when they first arrive, I think, based on the time of day before they enter the bar, or it could be afterwards, so after the celebrations begin, because I'm pretty sure we don't see any of the crew there in the bar when Zoro's fighting, so before or after, either way it works. But one thing is that it's gonna be interesting to see how they handle the Zoro versus Luffy fight, or if it's cut all together, because that one scene is not very popular because Luffy isn't acting like himself in it, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's cut all together. And the next detail I want to talk about is actually from a shot we've already seen, but either this shot's been extended or I just never noticed before, because we can see the skull of one of the Sea Kings that Dory or Broggy killed that became the reason for their duel. You can see it in the background. I've said it before, I've said it 1,000 times. It's all about the scale. We're talking about skulls the size of mountains, and in this shot it does look like a mountain looming in the background. And now we come to all the shots that we see from the inside of Laboon. We see the ship sitting in the back of his mouth with his massive uvula dangling in the foreground. I don't know why I use that word, but whenever it comes up I think of this joke from Monster House.
Well, if those are the teeth, and that's the tongue, then that must be the uvula.
Oh, so it's a girl house.
What? No, it stimulates the gag reflex. Everyone has a uvula.
Not me.
Anyway, I don't think Laboon is gonna have his insides modified. He's not gonna have a metal system built into him. He won't have a hatch door on his head. The ship won't go all the way to his stomach, and Crocus won't have a holiday home inside of him. The way the ship and crew get out, I'm guessing, is just from him opening his mouth again for whatever reason. That being said, the very next shot shows Sanji and Usopp going deeper into him, so while they go exploring inside of Laboon, this is probably when Vivi shows up to attack Nami, meaning Zoro is the only other one on the ship, and that's who she is asking for help. And later on, those two, Sanji and Usopp, find somebody inside, so that is gonna be Mr. 9, because who else is going to be inside of a whale here? So that's the whole crew accounted for this arc, this episode, I guess. And we see what Luffy is doing here later on. Following this are some new shots of the Baroque Works agents, with Mr. 3 creating the giant wax candle, and you can even see Vivi, Zoro and Nami trapped at the bottom, so all that's left is for Zoro to pose and everything is perfect. And then we see another one of Mr. 3's creations, this time his wax house, which is much more detailed than the original, as Mr. 13 walks in on and attacks Sanji. This is why I'm so sure Karu is going to be in season 3. Just look at this. They adapted an anthropomorphized otter wearing a pajama onesie. With this degree of success, a giant duck is surely possible as well. So this is the scene where Sanji's on the phone with Crocodile, who we see our first silhouetted shot of in the new poster, with the unluckies arriving to catch him in the act. So this may be the first time we see Crocodile in the season. We get a better look of how Robin's abilities are going to work, how they're going to be adapted. Her arms will dissolve into flower petals after they've inflicted violence, done their job. And jumping forward to a clear shot of Buggy in a new variation of face paint, a greater balance between paint and skin. We also have this shot of him facing off against Luffy, but as for the trailer, we see him sitting down, and it looks to be inside one of the tents in Loketown, in the plaza for the celebrations of the day of Roger's execution. And you know what? This new face paint looks creepier to me than he did in season 1. Returning to Reverse Mountain now, we see Luffy, who doesn't end up inside Laboon, but somehow ends up on one of the capes by one of the lighthouses, which is really far away from Laboon, so I have no clue how he ended up there. And we have a very quick shot of Crocus, who I think gives Laboon his medicine by shooting him from here with this thing. And I'm also saying this based on the fact we know the medicine is stored in the lighthouse, so maybe he shoots him, Laboon is stabilized, he's sedated, his muscles relax, his mouth opens, and the crew is free. And back to Luffy, who is Tarzan swinging now towards him, so I am now confident this is after the crew is free, because I think this is Luffy on his way to begin their fight, to make their promise, although I don't know how they will adapt a fight between Luffy, a human, and a whale, a giant whale, because in the original, Laboon was just jumping out of the water like a dolphin, which he just isn't gonna do in the live action. And back to Drum Island, where we see our first real look of Dr. Kureha, who looks to be in town at the moment here. The hair looks great, the outfit looks great, and with this image of her, she could not look any better. The actress is 72 years old, she does not look anywhere near 72. Ironic that she is literally half of Kureha's age, but for a character obsessed with being youthful, she seems to have achieved it in the live action. After that is the longest continuous or joint shot in the trailer, which is an extended look at Zoro against the bounty hunters, who are all members of Baroque Works, remember, and the choreography is impeccable. I'm no sword master, I'm no choreographer, but this stuff looks really good to me. It does look like the majority of this fight is going to take place indoors, and I think that means the number of bounty hunters isn't going to be quite 100, but even so, that poses its own challenges to fight and shoot within this confined space, and it seems as though they've done really well. He says good sword because this is also his first time breaking in the Sandai Katetsu after he got it in Logtown. This is his first chance to really test the sword. So the next portion of the trailer is a lot of very quick shots, with the next one being the end of Reverse Mountain, where Laboon has to say goodbye to the Straw Hat with the Jolly Roger now painted on his head, so he can no longer charge into the red line lest he risk ruining the new paint job. And he looks incredible here, completely dwarfs the Merry. I think he's the greatest achievement from the season in terms of bringing something to life. The mix of practical sets for the inside of him and CGI for everything else. He looks insane. There's a lot of good stuff that's gonna be adapted with these arcs. Laboon is right up there with what I'm looking forward to seeing the most, alongside the giants, because I'm a giant fanboy like Usopp. I love those guys. Dory and Brogy are some of my cult favorites, I think is the term. Less prominent characters who I just have this huge affinity for. I'm just really fond of them, even though they are currently very prominent in the manga. And unfortunately with them, specifically with Dory, comes my one issue: his costume. I know the costume design in season 1 was an issue for people for looking too clean at times, looking too much like cosplay, although it never really bothered me. However, here, his helmet and his beard just look a bit off to me, specifically the helmet, because it looks like it's made out of cardboard. Hopefully it's just this one shot, this angle, because the fight between them could be again another one of my highlights of the season. Maybe it's just the perspective, because the shot of Brogy we have before of him looming over the ship looked great, and we have to go back to scale again with the giants. To make them work, they need to look giant, and the best way to do that is have everything shot from a human perspective. We need to be looking up at these guys a lot. This one scene is different obviously because it's only those two here now. Little Garden basically needs to feel like a kaiju movie. Everything about them needs to feel big and weighty. But that's not everything in the shot, because next we see the Island Eater, which is something else I thought was gonna be cut. Obviously this scene is from the end of Little Garden, so I wonder how gruesome it's going to be, because Dory and Brogy shoot straight through it, so surely it's gonna be a bloody mess unless they more so knock it away. Or I'm guessing there are gonna be ways for them to get around the blood. And here we have Sanji, and I was going to skip over this until I saw other people theorizing this is his reaction to seeing Nami on the bed in Kureha's castle, which would remind him of the image of his mother, Sora, ill on her bed. And if that is the case, how explicit will it be? Will there be any mention from Sanji about his mother or anything, or not? If not, then this will technically remain as headcanon, but I still really like the idea. Nearing the end now, we see the inside of Kureha's castle, where we see Warple in his entirety, and I think he has the best costume design in the season. Faithful yet intimidating. I know it's kind of taboo to suggest something in the live action being better than the original, but Warple also isn't a very high bar to clear. At the same time though, with his relevance in the current story, I have warmed up to him, so there is still a part of me that wants him to keep a bit of his goofiness. His subordinates have also been cast as well, I'm sure, but we haven't seen them. Maybe that's who Zoro, Usopp and everybody else are gonna fight in this shot. And now comes some more of Chopper in his regular reindeer form, his true form, skidding across the dirt. This may be his first appearance in the show. The same time we first meet Kureha, they're down in the town helping somebody. Again, he looks very good. You compare the Lord of the Coast from season 1, which looked decent, nowhere near perfect though, with all of the heavy uses of CGI, much needed CGI mind you, in this trailer and season. It kind of puts into perspective how successful season 1 was, never mind personal opinions on its quality, that they were able to pull out all the stops here for season 2. And another extended scene I do want to talk about, because we see more of Luffy's reaction to Chopper, and he loses his mind over seeing him. Again, Sanji's there, so he made it up to the castle one way or another. But back to Luffy, him shouting "what is that" is the best thing from Luffy I've seen out of any of these trailers so far, because to me, the way he says it feels so genuine. He kind of stumbles over his words slightly as well, which makes it feel even more so in my opinion. Out of everything, this feels real to me, which is really good, because as good as Iñaki Godoy was in season 1, he wasn't perfect, even though that's not his fault, because this is Monkey D. Luffy we're talking about. But I'm happy to say I can see his performance looks to be even better here. And the trailer ends with some very quick flashes, but 2 of them really stick out. First is Smoker, a proper look at his abilities in action. Smoke simulations on point. This is going to be taking place in the fight where Luffy does the Gum Gum Gatling, I assume. It's weird to think he's only going to feature prominently at least in one episode, because he was the big cliffhanger after season 1, and we know he follows the crew all the way to Alabasta, so we may get to see crumbs of him in each episode after Logtown, kind of like the Gob Kobe subplot, but this would fit a lot better because it's relevant. And as for the other major shot, it's right afterwards, and it's the iconic scene of Luffy standing on the top of Kureha's castle after being shot at, flag in hand, saying it is unbreakable. I've pointed out a lot of scenes I'm looking forward to the most. Add this to the list. It is changed a bit. Instead of holding the flag, he's standing in front of it as if he's guarding the flag, guarding the symbol, so I don't mind that change at all. And the way the smoke clears here, add the right soundtrack and this is going to be incredible. And now to the final 2 shots. First is Chopper, who is apparently having the most fun he's ever had, and the more we see of him, the better he looks for me. I talked about it a bit with the dinosaurs. To make things look real, they don't need to be real as in realistic, you know, because the standards of reality in the world of One Piece are very different from the standards of reality to us in our real world. And second, the last thing in the trailer, we see Luffy, Zoro and Nami in Whiskey Peak all having a good time, with even Zoro smiling, a very clear big smile, so maybe I will get my wish to see him being a bit more carefree at times. And I'm gonna take a guess and say this is Luffy's reaction to hearing that the town is gonna hold a celebration for their arrival, meaning he is going to get to feast. And that is just about everything for this trailer and also for the season, because I can't think of what else there is for them to show that hasn't been shown already. Tashigi, I think we've seen a picture of, but she hasn't been shown in any trailers. Miss Monday as well, I think, although we do see her on the poster, same with Crocodile, along with the other Baroque Works agents, minus Mr. 1, Daz Bones, and Mr. 2, Bon Clay, saving them for the next season, and I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head for who we haven't seen. But the craziest thing is that even with all that's been put on display, barely anything about the plot's been revealed aside from the fact they make it to the Grand Line, which is already revealed in the title of the season. This world is that wild, you can fill the trailers out and leave the actual plot untouched for when people actually watch the show. So now there is less than a month to go until everybody sees just how batshit insane One Piece can really get.